So we are now on dairy production, APT 314, and we just stopped last time on buffalo breeding, no? And for next meeting, ang maunang mag-report ng housing and management is 313314 there. Is si Lance. So Lance, andyan ka ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ikaw mauna next week, ha? Then followed by Roel next week, then Kier. And wala na ko nagbutang og link because these are all already sent to your dashboard, no? Nana sa inyong dashboard, so
Okay, ma'am.
check it, yeah. And you don't really need to make a PowerPoint presentation kasi it should kay dapat darita focus sa ako ang Kuiper na kani siya. So last time we discussed this one, no? Tama ba ko? Actually, wala na ko na-review ang ating previous video. And since, can you still remember which part did we stop before? Sorry ha, kay medyo Ka-remember pa mo? Bata mo sa kuha ha. So I have an excuse kung di na ako ma-remember. 314. Check ko nga kung asa pa nag-stop. Anyone, if you still remember?
Wala mo ko last week, ma'am.
Okay. Excuse the Lance. Kasi kauban ako last sa tandem method eh.
And file based on the quality. And with this method, meaning that
so we stop at tandem method. So in continuation, so in continuation dun sa ating last about culling methods. So we have, aside from the which one is the first culling of dairy animals is the tandem method, no? Which is also a form of selective breeding where a breeder addresses one characteristic of the animal at a time. So ginapili lang kung unsa yung kanang desirable na quality, but this is more of genetic. So there is what we call minimum level of quality set for each characteristic, whichever the breeder wish to remain. And they focus on the improvement of the particular trait without, of course, losing the quality of others. Yes. Whatever na lang mo gusto. So the breeder will also raise the threshold for selection on this trait, which successive generation of the progeny. So medyo this method is breeding method talaga siya. So for example, gusto niya yung muzzle length, shape, and eye placement in the breeding stock. So, but he wants to improve the eye shape of the progeny. Pagka-arte na lang yun. And produce may determine a minimum level of improvement in the eye shape required for progeny to be returned into the breeding program. So later in the next discussion, we have a lot of breeding types, no? Backcross, no, and crossbreeding. So yung first na generation or the progeny will be evaluated depending on the qualities for lens shape and eye muscle, then eye placement, no? Then i-breed na siya, no, to improve the criteria of the eye shape. And if the animal does not meet the level of the improvement of the eye shape while maintaining the other qualities, so i-culled siya in the breeding program. Therefore, katong animal is not used. Instead, it spayed, neutered, or placed in a pet home. So the second is the independent level. So this is where animal who falls below a given standard in a single characteristic is not used in a breeding program. No. And using successive mating, threshold culling criteria is raised, improving breed with successive generation. And once na dili ma-meet yung standard, kaya siya independent kasi single characteristic lang. So this method can also measure several characteristics, but at once only. So if the progeny fall below the desired quality being measured, it is not used in the breeding program. And through successive generation again, if the minimum quality of each character is raised, thus nag-improve yung traits, no? With usually by crossbreeding, no? Or so example, if the breeder has view what the minimum requirements, for example, for the muzzle length and so on, the eye shape. So ginagamit siya for further breeding. And if not, if it is minimum acceptable quality for each traits, then it is folded back into the breeding program. And if the animal fails to meet its standard quality, it's culled from the breeding program. And the third method is the total score. So in this method, the breeder evaluates and selects breeding stock based on may mga weighted table characteristic, no, may scoring. So they select the qualities that are most important and assigns them. Like for example, gusto niyo yung color. So priority niya yung color, so 100%. 50% yung weight niya. And all the rest are 20, 30, ganon. So the weights of all the traits should up to 100, of course. When evaluating individual for selection, they must use 1 to 10, or with 10 being the most desirable expression and being 1 the lowest. So naka-rate of 1 to 10 siya, then multiplied by the weights, then added together to give a total score. Kaya total score method siya. And individual which fail to meet the threshold are culled or removed from the breeding program. So this gives the breeder way to evaluate multiple traits na on the animal at the same time, whichever lang ang priority niya. Depende sa maralagi ng score kag essay, no, or contest. So this is the most flexible among the three and allows for weighted improvement of multiple characteristics, and to also make major gains in one aspect while moderate or lesser gains in the others. So for example, if they are willing to make a smaller improvement sa kanyang muzzle length or shape, and moderate gain in improvement sa eye placement, and more dramatic improvement in the eye shape, so their breeder will determine if 40% ba siya, or 30%, or 15%. Then he evaluate from 1 to 10, and then compute the formula like that. 15 times the muzzle length, for example, is which one? It's 15%, no? Or 15 times the muzzle shape is also 15%, and so on. And that's the total for that score. Then the breeder will determine which is the lowest acceptable totals. For example, ay gusto ko mataas yung standard ko sa 60, for example, no? And then if not, below 50 or below 60, then it will be folded back or culled from the breeding programs if this doesn't meet the minimum total score for the cull. So there are actually points in culling dairy animals. So 10 points, we have do not move non-ambulatory animals to market under any circumstances. So I'm sorry, but to be honest, I'm not really sure kung tama ba akong pagsagot. Or do you know what's non-ambulatory? Baby, sama kay ka. Anyone? Or parihap ang tanan? So, ambulatory. So, yeah, tama ako pagsagot. Kaya hindi ka lakaw, no? So, do not move kayo. Yeah, and make the decision to treat, to cull, or euthanize animals promptly. Of course, you know what's euthanize, diba? Mercy killing. And sick and injured animals should be segregated from the herd. Delay transport of animal that appears to be exhausted or dehydrated until it is rested, fed, and dehydrated. And parang nasa ano mo din siya, animal welfare na mga itong good husbandry practices. So milk all cows that are still lactating just prior to transporting or packing or processing facility. Use transportation company that is knowledgeable about your animal care expectation, provides for safety and comfort of animals during transport. So lahat ng mga staff is well-trained for this. Do not transport animals packing or processing facility until all proper treatment withdrawal times have been followed, and do not transport animals with poor body condition, generally body conditions for less than, kasi naka-scale yan. Less than 2 is not. And also, do not that require mechanical assistance to rise and or reluctant ng mga animal unable to walk except for veterinary treatment, no, kailangan siya tambalan. And also when using any handling device, abuse must not be tolerated. And do not transport animals with bone fractures of the limbs or injuries of the spine. So with if they have recent fracture and related to mobility, they should be called and transported directly to a packing or processing facility. So do not transport animals with condition that will not pass pre-slaughter inspection also at the packing or processing facility. If unsure, you consult with your veterinarian before transporting an animal to a packing or processing facility. So that would be all for breeding criteria. Now we will discuss on the estrus cycle of this is for cattle and buffalo. So generally yung heifer attains puberty, yung babae na nagdadalagang baka, no, is this becomes sexually matured and secondary sexual characteristics become conspicuous after 8 to 12 months period, no, from panganak. So smaller cows, they will be matured earlier than the larger one. And the estrus cycle starts from puberty, and it is regular cycle occurs every once in 21 to 3 days throughout the reproductive phase. So you should this is a very important thing to know, not only for animals but also for humans, no? Kasi if you really wanna get pregnant, this is something that you should know, or not pregnant. So this is something you should mind, no? Kasi yung kanyang estrus will only occur once, no, within these days and even within hours ng atad. So during the cycle, yung mature ovum is liberated from the ovary, then the cervix become receptive to the spermatozoa. the female exhibits yung mga behavioral adjustment attraction to receive the male. So it is actually divided into two. I know 3, 4.
Ma'am,
Yes, Lance.
nabagya po yan, ma'am, kaning silent hit, ma'am.
Silent hit for animals.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not so familiar, no, pero I just read something. I told you more on technical knowledge. I mean, tawag doon, di technical ka ng book knowledge ako dili good experience, no. So na ako'y nabasa na there are times na sa ito nga animal dili kaayo more ang buffalo to dili kay sila showy sa ilahang estrus cycle. So that could be true, Lance. Pero sa dog dili siguro, no.
Nagapon, ma'am.
Hi, silent.
Yes, ma'am.
Dili ka kabalo kung ano sila in hit.
Dili, ma'am.
Really?
Pero ano, ma'am, pero kadto sa una, ma'am, wala man gud may mga male dogs, ma'am. So karon ang tig-detect sa hit, ma'am, is katong mga male na, ma'am.
Okay. Pero usually kasi sila, like, sila naman ay makabalo, no? Animals to animals, they will understand each other. And because literal talaga yung inhit, no? Which means nagataas pa ng temperature. So kanang like
Yes, ma'am. Naapoy upan, ma'am, na ano, na mailan dyan mo mag-hit, ma'am, kay kaning walay gaano magkaon. Magluya.
Marapong tao dyan, no?
Yes, ma'am. Nangala, ma'am.
Well, I mean, ingon sila, no? Like, kung naglandi, marag walay gana mo kaon. No? So, but, have you seen kanang mating season sa mga snakes?
Wala, ma'am.
Really? Wala pa nag-alaga sa inyong mga ornamental snake? Ornamental dyan, tao. Dilig na ornamental, ako rin ang bukod. Di mo mahilig ka ng mga python? Ew! So,
Padlock mo kayo na, ma'am.
dili, uy na, may uban
Pero
mo
depende.
kaganahan.
Depende gyapon sa ano, ma'am. Pagdako, ma'am.
Diba? Na uban na
Depende
ganahan
gyapon sa ulo.
even cobra. So, like for for snake, I've really seen it, no, kanang unsa sila magmate. So isa ka babae, daghan kay magtapok ng mga lalaki, no? Iyo. Na mag-intertwine sila. Kita na mo?
Mag-kumpol, ma'am. Yes. Tama na, ma'am. Kita na ko, ma'am.
Gani, as in well, daghan makay video unta, no?
Wala po sila, ano, ma'am, no? Kaning season sa hit, ma'am. Ay, sa breeding.
Nana sila season, basta season ang tawag nila. I'm not also so familiar, pero nakita lamang gud na ako as in na-experience ako dahil dili nakita, nagkataon lang bud ba na nakita ko nga in reality talaga siya as in luod kay tan-awon. So anyway, we'll try to understand in the case of this livestock. So ang kanilang cycle is actually divided into four, no? So the first 2 days is proestrum pa siya. So nag-build up pa yung Graafian follicle na ito yung nagna-nourish sa ovum and it contains the hormone called estrogen. So in this pa lang stage, meron na changes sa uterus and blood supply. So this will mark na the animal na going to heat na. And this graphical follicle in the ovary will grow and increase secretion follicular fluid, which have estradiol, which will increase the number of cilia and increase vascularity of the uterus, resulting in increase in thickness of the epithelial wall of vagina. Then the vaginal wall adjustment is well filled to prevent possible damage to the wall when coitus occurs. No? So coitus is another term for sexual intercourse. So yeah. So in the proestrum is in short the graphical follicle formation. Para yung wall of the vagina is thickened, and in order for it to be ready for the penis, no? So next is just for 1 day is the estrum. This is the period of desire, and during which the female is ready now for the male. So Amgraphian follicle this time is dry, not and turgid, and brought about to an end by the rupture or ovulation. So ma-ovulate na yung follicle, and then yeah, swelling of the vulva. So magbugdo na ng vulva ni mother, no, ni cow or ni buffalo, and vulva and vagina are congested. So the vulva is buti na lang wala. Pero nakita to ninyo katong kanina, 'di ba? Tong illustration. So medyo naguot na siya, no, kasi congested siya. So therefore you can see that ready na ni siya kay nagkuan na jud, nagbugdo na iyahang if you remember kanina, ang vagina it's the yung katong tube talaga, no? And then vulva murag iyahang aping sa katong vagina. So pag magbugdo na ang murag ganig na siya kanang murag nagguot na. So that's it, pansit. So next is for 4 days etong metoestrum, implantation of the embryo takes place, and the corpus luteum or the CL will form and prevents the growth of the follicle na, Graafian follicle, thereby na-arrest na ang estrous cycle. So this is the end na, kasi supposedly na-implant na yung embryo, na-fertilize na siya. And during this period, the cavity of the GF, which ovum has been expelled, becomes recognized and forms a new structure, which is the corpus luteum. And after 4 days, for 14 days na, further development of the uterus takes place. So nabuntis na yun. And the animal if the animal has not conceived, then the involution of the uterus takes place. This is the longest part of the estrous cycle. The implantation of embryo and secretion of uterine milk takes place, which is used for the nourishment of the embryo prior implantation. And in case walay pregnancy, the animal returns to the normal and the cycle continues. May pa ni mga animals kay walay menstruation. So kasi in the case of human, katong ovum na wala na fertilized, so they will just become waste as menstruation or blood waste. So the estrus is the period in which the animal exhibits desire for sex, and the period lasts for 12 to 18 hours lang, no? Within 1 day ra gid siya. Tama ba ko? Tama. Within 1 day. Pero it's not in the case of humans kasi for humans, I guess, kasi syempre kasi minion ako, no? So, katong gina-mention na sa kong OB-GYN na within the 5 days, no? Like if ang peak is on that day, so 3 days before and 3 days after, diha dapat tirahan or diha dapat receptive, no? So the sign of estrus are heat in cattle. So these are not the signs. Off feed, ay walang ganang kumain, sudden drop in milk production, and then the cow will search for male, make deep bellow, and restless and excited and bellowing. Frequent urination, homosexuality character like mounting over the cow, and accepting other cow to mount over. No, ganon. No, mount gani. And during estrus, the cow will accept the mounting by a bull or other cow. And the behavior of standing quietly while being mounted by other cow or Morgan is siya, iganahan ko ana, so go lang, by other bull or cow is called standing hit. And this is stress sign of hit. No? So, even kung ikaw is expert na kaana, no? Like kung gunitan lang nimo siya, so ganahan na siya, no? Edema or swelling of the genitalia, yung mucus discharge from the vulva, and may stick on the tail. So kung sticky na ganayang tail, so na siya ikuan. Mucus discharge. Hair on the tail head may push forward. Yeah, and there may be dirt on the side of the abdomen due to mounting of the other animal. So yun lang, simple lang naman, no? It's also like the usual animal thing. And the signs of heat may be shown, will be described for each stage. No, for early heat period, a sexually mature non-pregnant cow comes in heat every 18 to 24 days. No, so after that, like karon siya nagkuan, no, so ma-counter na nimo. Pinakadugay ng 24 days. So you will expect na mag-inhit na product siya because of the development of ovum in the ovary. And early signs of heat, the length of this period will also, for halimbawa, muna na ginayang peak kasi, di ba, 24 hours lang siya mahita po. So you should look for the sign that, yeah, this is it, pansit na dyan. And about 2 days, ay, asan ako? Standing heat period kasi early heat period yun. Standing heat period, if the heat changes into standing heat, meaning, ganahan na yun siya mount, you know. Wait, 10 minutes. The length of this phase of heat ranges from 6 to 18 hours also, and shorter kapag tropical condition, under more temperature conditions. Temperate condition pala. And then the late heat period, after that, the after standing heat, some cows continue to show behavioral signs of heat, called late heat period, and will last 12 to 24 hours again. And about 2 days after the end of the heat, the cow may show a bloody mucus discharge from the vulva. So mura po sila gina-demonstrate, no? This is called the metoestral bleeding. And this is the right time for breeding a cow is when the egg or ova from ovary is released about 12 to 18 hours after the onset of symptoms of the heat. And the ovum will survive up to 16 hours after the release, while the sperm will live for 12 to 14 hours only. As a routine, cow is seen showing signs of early heat in the morning, no, sa buntag, and it may be inseminated in the evening. And if such signs are seen in the evening, the cow should be bred the next day morning. So, laton pa naman siya, no? And in buffalo, the expression of estrus sign is very poor. So, ito pa lang nabasa ko. And particularly during summer period of the buffalo show only silent heat. And silent heat means the animal could not show any visible sign of estrus, yung tanong kanina ni Lance. And it occurs more frequently in the first calver than older cows, no? In early lactation than in later lactation. So pag bata pa pag first time niya, dili kaya siya showy. And more pronounced in buffalo during summer kasi summer jud ang mura ka ng inhit sila. And we still have 8 minutes, so let's move on to the methods of breeding in cattle. So we have 3 ways. Of course, you know what is artificial insemination, where bull semen is introduced into the cow's uterus artificially using artificial insemination gun. So I don't know if we have photos for that, but wait, asan ako? It will be shown on video anyway later in the end of this. So next reporter pala. So sa natural mating naman, it's also healthy and proven bull is used to mate a cow. Yung kanang meron na talaga siyang very good na bull. And multiple ovulation embryo transfer, or MOET, or a method of insemination where embryos or fertilized eggs na i-transfer na lang sa uterus. So sa test tube siya or sa petri dish siya fertilized. So generally, one ovum is released from each ovary at the time of ovulation. But by hormone injection, more ova can be produced from the ovary. So after artificial insemination, 4 to 10 embryos are collected at a time. And then this embryo is transplanted into replacement mother or carrier cow. So naapod siya ka ng marag kanang tawag na kanang marag replacement. Replacement gani no? Or mura gani kanang and yun nga, replacement. At a very low temperature, fetuses can be preserved for several days. No? Even we have the so-called cryogenic preservation, wherein we use the liquid nitrogen for AI, no? They have yun store and semen, which can last forever. No? If you use the cryo preservation. I don't know if it's been mentioned here, but I will give you video presentation later. So what do you do in the artificial insemination? Of course, in this technique, semen is, of course, living sperm is collected from the male and introduced to the female reproductive tract at the proper time with the help, of course, of instrument yung kanina gun. So it's therefore the deposition of semen to the female genital tract by means of instruments. And this was first scientifically researched of these domestic animals using artificial insemination was first performed on dogs in 1780 by Lazzano Spallanzani, an Italian scientist. And there are two types, the intrauterine insemination and the intracervical insemination or intravaginal. Oh my God, laylay din na. Uterine ang isa, cervical ang isa, or vagina. No? So, of course, this is very advantageous than the disadvantage, no? And because this increases usefulness of superior size, so mapili mo man God na yung what do you call that? Magandang semen or to extraordinary degree. At saka, yung service ng superior size are greatly extended and no need to maintain a breeding bull. Yung ano na lang, yung production na lang ng semen, which is frozen. And as I have said, stored in the liquid nitrogen at 196 degrees Celsius, or we call it as the cryogenic preservation. So this semen can be easily transported anywhere, no, using in different continents, and spreading of disease is absolutely nil or nothing, and overcomes the difficulty of size or weight between the dom and sire and their compatibility, whatever, and increase the rate of conception, of course, because in the artificial insemination, the semen is being deposited in the mid-cervix. So mas accurate siya. And outstanding animals located apart can be mated, no, and helps better record keeping. Old and heavy sized bulls, injured, disabled sires can still be used. If the sires are used for natural service, the animal can serve only 50 to 60 animals per year, no? But daghan na siya, di ba? But under artificial AI, no, the amount of semen secreted by animal can satisfy up to 1,000 animals per year. So that's very outstanding. And semen can be stored in a frozen state. So even after namatay na yung source, it can still be used, no, up to 15 to 20 years. Abi ko ba naman forever? In using atomic, radioactive, or X-ray unit. And semen is expanded, and number of animals can be crossed, and everything is possible. So frozen semen can be transported to destination once in a month from a semen bank. However, the disadvantages are some bull semen may not freeze well, so we will lose its ano. And if inferior bull semen is frozen and used, there could be extensive damage. And maintenance of frozen semen bank is not economical for small area operation. It's really very expensive, especially and requires well-trained technical personnel and special equipment and hygienic measures. It's also very hygienic and to adopted in preparation. And improper cleaning instrument and unsanitary condition may lead to lower fertility and may be also nucleus for spreading of diseases. No? But it's just few, no, to compare. So in the embryo transfer technology in cattle, yung kanina, embryo transfer was first performed and recorded in 1890 by Walter Hiff. And he transferred actually two Angora rabbit embryos in Belgian doe and to produce mixed litter of Belgian and Angora bunnies. So the embryo transfer in food animals began in 1930s with sheep and goats, but it was not until the 1950s where successful embryo transfer were reported in cattle and pig by Jim Rawson at Cambridge, England. So the components of this embryo transfer program is that we need donor animal that will make embryos and have good reproductive performance and of course progenic performance and regular estrus cycle up to 60 to 90 days of post-calving. And for the recipient naman, or the one that receives the embryo from donor, should be good, healthy body condition, vaccinated, and for all reproductive diseases, and have completed 2 estrus cycles already. And for the procedure, less than 1 minute na lang tayo. So just come back to the link. Selection of donor cow, then super ovulation of the donor cow, super ovulation and release of the multiple eggs, and then hormone preparation, which can be intramuscular